What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of Grey Man Operations. Today we're going to be talking about optics. I still get a ton of questions regarding optics. While it's become super common these days, there are still many people who don't know the ins and outs of how to acquire an optic. By that I mean what optic to buy, how to mount it on their firearm, what can and can't they do, etc, etc. This video is designed to answer those questions. I'm going to do my best to explain everything to you. I've got about 12 optics on this table. I'm going to show it to you all in a second. In taking them out and looking at them, I was like, wow, I should actually know what I'm talking about, but I probably don't. Guys, some news. This is the RORC or ROARC, but I'm assuming it's a RORC Origin optic. Now, this might not mean much to many people, but it means a lot to me because this optic is from a South African company. And as you know, I am South African. So I'm very keen and very excited to have a look at this optic. I'm definitely going to be reviewing it, putting it through its paces. It's apparently 1000 G impact rated. We will be testing that. So I'm super keen. Also, excuse me, Siley have sent me the Ghost optic to review. Look at this thing. Have you ever? I have never quite seen something as robust as this, as well as, excuse me, the Cobra X Pro, which they say is 100% drop safe. So we're going to be putting those to the test, guys. Just before we switch the view to the top down and I get into this video, remember, the competition to win a Mechanic MC9 is still open. It's available to enter until the 7th of July. If you're a patron of the channel, you are already entered and you will be entered an extra 5 times. Plus, you'll be entered an extra time for every month you have been a patron. If you're not a patron of the channel and you want to join on Patreon, it's the first link in the video description below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook or Instagram, it's the first comment. To my patrons, the week after I give away this firearm, I'm going to, not this one, a brand new one, but like this, I'm going to give away a Mechanic M01 Red Dot. That is only for my patrons. If you're not a patron and you want to enter the competition, the link is in the video description below, so follow that and you can enter. Guys, let's flip the view and talk about optics. Okay, guys, as you can see, we have a table full of optics. We have a few firearms on the table. All these firearms are empty and safe, so don't freak out about that. Okay, so the point of this section is, by the time it's done, I want you guys who've watched this in its entirety to be able to go to a gun shop or go to a gunsmith and say, I want a particular optic cutout. Go online and buy an optic and know exactly what you're getting so that you can mount that optic without too much fuss. So we're going to start off with the optic footprint, the optic cutout, different mounting methods, and some funny things when it comes to closed emitter optics. Okay, actually let's start off with a bit of the anatomy so people know what I'm talking about. Okay, so the outside bit of an optic I consider the optic shroud. That's this bit here, which is designed to protect the second bit, which is the optic glass, the window or the aperture, from environmental damage. The window will often have like a filter on it called a notch filter. It serves various purposes, but we're not going to get into that right now. At the back, generally, you will have an emitter. That is what it is, like a LED type deal that emits a dot or an image onto the glass, which is what you see when you look through it. Then you've got your elevation and windage dials, generally on the top and on the side. Now, the important bit is what's called the footprint. On the optic, it's called the footprint. On the firearm, it's called the cutout. Now, I've filmed this video about twice, and I do get why people are often confused about this, because I actually confused my own shit literally 2 minutes ago. But a lot of times people will ask me, what optic cutout should I get for my firearm, because I want to start running an optic. And after a bit of investigation, I generally come to the conclusion that you'd go for something like a RMR cutout. And when I say the words RMR, people freak out a bit, because they say, well, I'm not going to run an RMR, should I get the RMR cutout? Guys, the cutout names generally are based on the most popular optic that runs that footprint. So all these optics here, these 4 optics here, are all RMR footprint optics, okay? Because you're running an RMR cut or an RMR footprint doesn't mean you have to run the Trigicon RMR. What do I mean? So this plate by SA Laser Engraving is designed to accept the Holosun 507C, the Trigicon RMR, pretty much anything that runs an RMR footprint. So my mechanic MO3 red dot will fit on there. In fact, I'll do it another way. If I put this onto my firearm like that, I want you to, before we get to that, just want to show you the value of cutout and understanding it. If we look at these 2 optics, this is a Siley optic. Look, by the way, look at this optic. This thing is an absolute beast, a Siley Ghost. I'm actually going to start testing it for review soon. But these are both RMR footprints. Now, 99.99999% of the time, when someone says RMR footprint, the length from there to there will be the same. Where these holes are will be the same. However, the width might vary, but that generally won't affect your ability to mount it onto a firearm. For example, if I take my Canik SFX with an RMR plate, it will mount the Siley optic just fine. It will mount the Siley Wolf X Pro just fine. It will mount my mechanic MO3 just fine. And it will also mount the Holosun I'll just get it flat. It will also mount the Holosun just fine. So the way this would work is I'd basically screw this plate into my firearm there and there, and then screw the optic onto the plate. Now we'll talk about mounting or optic plates in a second, but there is another way, and that is direct mounting. So in order for this to work, you have to have your slide cut for a particular optic. Now your micro optics 90% of the time are going to be the Shield RMSC cutout. Now just because you have a Shield RMSC cutout does not mean you have to run a Shield RMSC. This is the mechanic MO1. This is actually the Shield RMSC. Okay, well this is actually the RMSW because it's a waterproof version, but it's the footprint of the RMSC. And as you can see, these 2 optics are the same in length but slightly different in width. But generally the width does not matter that much. So the nice part of direct mounting is it's generally more secure, although I've had no problem with mounting with plates. The downside is if you want to mount something like this, you are out of luck because that won't work. Okay, you generally can't even get the plate for this. So it's easier to go smaller, but it's almost impossible to go bigger. So if you want direct milling, so for example, if you direct mill this for an RMR footprint, just know you are only going to be able to run RMR footprinted red dot. Now let's talk about plates. Now on the Canik Mete SF series, all of the new ones, which is the ones that have the trigger guard undercut and the holster retention detent, it's nice because whilst they are cut for the Shield RMSC, so this optic here will mount directly to the slide if I wanted it to. You notice the cutout is a bit bigger. So I can fit different size optic plates in there, similar to the Glock modular optic system, the MOS system, which we'll talk about a bit later on. Okay, so what's nice about that is the guys at SA Laser Engraving make different optic plates for this firearm. So if I'm going to run, for example, a Holosun or RMR style footprint, I can do so. But if I'm going to run an acro, I can also do that. And they make various different, I don't want to lose these screws, just give me a second. They make various different optic plates for the Canik Mete series. Now, this won't work for the old Meta SF. The way you know it's the old one is it doesn't have the cutout for your holster retention, and it's got this trigger guard, safety mechanism. This will only accept RMSC footprint red dots because the cutout is only for the RMSC. Even though it's a bit wider, there's no other red dot or longer shot. Sorry, there's no other footprinted red dot that will fit this optic cutout. So bear that in mind if you're going to buy your next Canik SF series. Okay, so onto the MOS system, the modular optic system. This is a standard Glock 19 Gen 4 and it's been cut for the MOS plates. These MOS plates have a very particular underside. It's got like a little well over here and like a detent in there, so that fits onto the firearm. And you then buy these plates, and with these plates you can run, I would go so far as to say, any optic. They even have one dedicated for the aimpoint acro. This is really nice because, and I suppose it's one of the advantages of Glock, you can run, there's not going to be an optic on the market that won't fit one of these plates. So you can basically go to town. At present, I have the RMR plate on there. So if we take an RMR footprinted red dot, we can chuck that guy on there and we are good to go. But this optic, this sight mark optic, for example, is a vortex footprint. I think it's number 1. Here we go. So we just do like, that'll fit. And then this Siley Cobra is also a vortex footprint. So look at the thickness of that shroud. Guys, red dot reviews are going to be coming thick and fast on the channel, so subscribe if you want to see those. So that is your open emitter optic. Then you have your closed emitter optics. Now 90% of the time, closed emitter optics will require some or other kind of plate. So one of the most popular closed emitter optics is the aimpoint acro. Okay, so if you look underneath, it's got this little bar, and this bar has to interface with that gap over there. So I wonder if I can do so if I need to loosen the screw. Give me a second, I've got to loosen the screw. You see that bar over there and that gap over there? Those two suckers go together like that. Then this goes on there like so. And then this screw is what tightens it down. So that's now on there. So this plate is what mounts to your gun, and this optic then mounts to that plate. Now you can have your slide direct milled for an aimpoint acro. I'm not a big fan of that because these type of cuts, these closed emitter cuts, are fairly unique. So if aimpoint decides they don't like that cut anymore, they're no longer going to manufacture it, and your aimpoint acro breaks, it's very difficult to find an optic, closed emitter optic that will fit multiple different optic cutouts. This optic, by the way, the Origin, this has its own proprietary optic plate. So you'll see it'll say 4 MOS, so this will mount to my Glock MOS. And you'll see this one has 2 bars. So it mounts like so. And then you tighten it down there, but obviously you mount the actual optic to your firearm with this. So guys, I hope I've made sense. I hope I've explained it as thoroughly as I possibly can. The only difference between a closed emitter and an open emitter optic is with a closed emitter optic, this is another optic from Sightmark with its own proprietary optic plate. This will interface with the RMR cutout. So you can even, I wonder if I can show this. If you take an RMR plate, right? Let's see if I can loosen this. So this optics plate actually mounts on an RMR's plate, like so. And then you mount the optic on it like that, which is a fairly unique way of doing things, but it does mean you have more mounting options and you don't have to have your slide direct milled for this optic. The closed emitter is simply, the only difference is, as you can see, this emitter here is open, it's right there. A closed emitter, the emitter is sort of sealed inside a box, so you don't get the effects of weather. You know, if a raindrop or a piece of lint or something was to fall directly onto that emitter, it would wash your dot out. The chances of it happening are slim to none, I would say. Look, at the end of the day, anything can happen. Michelle has run this firearm in the pouring rain, and it's not an issue at all. So it can happen, but it's highly, highly unlikely. And then just for, shall we call it, the sake of interest, I'm going to mount my dot on my firearm live for you to see. So currently I'm using the Mechanic M03, right? So which takes a RMR footprint. So I'll put that RMR plate on there. And then what I really like about the Mechanic mounting system is they have really thick screw holes. So let me just screw this sucker down. I've actually been testing this out, and this isn't best practice, guys, without any thread locker, and it's been holding solid. Like you'll see now when I tighten this down, it actually tightens back down. If I'm putting the right screws in the right side, which I hope I am, it tightens back down exactly to the witness marks that I made. So that sucker's tight. And let's get this one down. And tight. You want to tighten these guys down tight, and as you can see, there are those witness marks and it lines up perfectly. Then I take my Mechanic M03, put that on there, and you can see these holes interface with those holes, and it would be really awesome if I put the right screws in the right way, because then these screws, sorry, and now there's a really bad filming, but it's not hard to do on camera. Then these screws would also line up perfectly with the witness marks. You want to put these screws in sort of together, tighten them down together. This is really hard to show on camera. Wow, I didn't think it would be this difficult. So tightening these suckers down. I think we're going to be in luck. Yep. So those now match up to their witness marks. And guys, that's basically a red dot mounted. If you're going to use thread locker, use the blue thread locker, not the red. But there you're good to go. It's always good to witness mark your screws. So if something does come loose, if your dot loses 0, you can check that it's not the, or you can check if it is the screws. 99% of the time, guys, red dots are pretty solid. Like the technology to make these things is kind of established. If your dot does lose 0, 99% of the time, it's got to do with screws backing out. I often like to test red dots without thread locker, although especially with these, because the thread on these is quite deep. But if it's like a super shallow type situation, then I'll put some blue thread locker on. Let's switch the view and we can end off. Guys, I hope that video was helpful. I tried to explain it as clearly as possible. Just remember that on the optic, we're talking about the footprint. On the firearm, we're talking about the cutout. You can either have it cut directly to mount the specific optic, or you can have it cut to have a specific plate mounted, which does give you more options, but there are more things that can potentially go wrong. Although, to be brutally honest, the technology behind optics is pretty solid these days, right? They aren't like the early days. And if you tighten your screws down tight and you witness mark them, you should be good to go. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Like I said, I try to explain as thoroughly as I can, but it's kind of hard to also do on camera, so bear with me. But as always, guys, if you have any questions, you can ask down below or DM me on Instagram. More Instagram than Facebook, because Facebook is a bit inundated with DMs and I'm struggling to catch up. So if you want a quicker response, jump onto Instagram or comment down below and I'll be sure to try to get back to your comments. Guys, lots of optic reviews coming. Don't forget to join the Canik MC9 competition. Don't forget to join on Patreon if you want a chance to win this red dot. I give away gear like this all the time, so if you are a patron, you'll definitely get the advantage of that. That is it, guys. Have a good week. Be safe. Train hard. Cheers. God bless.